The night my wife came home from Phoenix, set her wedding ring beside the fruit bowl and said, "I want a divorce." Something tore inside my chest so violently, I honestly thought my heart had burst. For a few seconds, I could not breathe. I was standing barefoot in our kitchen with a wooden spoon in my hand, stirring the pasta sauce she always said tasted better the next day, wearing the old gray t-shirt she stole from me in college and used as a sleep shirt for almost 10 years. The house smelled like garlic, basil, and rain from the storm outside. I had lit the little candle she liked, the vanilla one in the cracked glass jar, because she'd texted me from the airport that she was exhausted and just wanted to come home. Home. I had read that word 3 times and smiled every time. Now she stood 6 feet away from me with her suitcase still upright by the back door, her makeup half gone, her hair flattened from the flight, and eyes so cold and frightened at the same time that I knew, before she said another word, that my life had already split into before and after. I laughed. It was not real laughter. It was shock forcing air out of my lungs. "What?" She swallowed. Her fingers shook once, then tightened around the strap of her purse. "Evan, please don't make this harder than it already is." Harder. I looked at the sauce bubbling on the stove, then back at my wife, my actual wife, the woman I had spent 11 years loving in all the ordinary ways that feel invisible until the day they are ripped from you. I had folded her laundry that morning. I had changed the sheets because she liked clean sheets after travel. I had driven to 3 stores to find the lemon yogurt she ate when she was stressed. "Harder. Say that again," I said, because maybe if she said it twice, my brain would finally reject it and wake me up. Her voice cracked on the second try. "I want a divorce." I turned the burner off so the sauce would not burn. It was the stupidest, saddest movement I have ever made. Even then, with my marriage bleeding out on the tile, I was still trying to save dinner. I faced her again. "Why?" Her jaw trembled. She looked at the ring on the counter like she had left a loaded gun there. "Because I'm not the person you think I am anymore." I took 1 step forward. "That is not an answer." She closed her eyes. I had an affair. The kitchen went soundless except for the rain punching at the windows. There are moments people describe with neat language, like the floor dropped out, or the room started spinning. But the truth is uglier. My body became foreign to me. My knees felt hollow. My fingertips went numb. My mouth filled with metal. I stared at her face and saw every year at once the 19-year-old woman laughing under stadium lights after our first football game, the bride crying into my neck while our families cheered, the exhausted new mother with our son asleep on her chest, the woman who once whispered in a hospital waiting room that whatever happened, we would always choose each other. And then I saw the stranger in front of me. "With who?" I asked. She did not answer quickly enough. The silence answered for her. I said his name before she did. "Darius?" She flinched. That was enough. Darius Cole, her boss, regional director. Sharp suits, expensive watch, voice smooth as polished wood. A black man with a calm kind of authority that made every room reorganize itself around him. I had met him twice at company events. He shook my hand like he was already half distracted by something bigger, looked me dead in the eye, and called my wife brilliant. Both times, I had felt proud of her. I leaned back against the counter because suddenly standing seemed like work I no longer knew how to do. On the trip. She nodded, once. The Phoenix conference had been 5 days. 5 days of early meetings, client dinners, networking mixers, and hotel sleep she said she desperately needed because work had been chewing her alive. I had stayed home in Indianapolis with our 8-year-old son, Caleb, helping with homework, making lunches, sending her pictures so she would not feel like she was missing too much. On the second night, she had replied to a photo of Caleb asleep with his dinosaur tucked under his chin. "Miss you both so much it hurts." I looked at her now and wondered what hour she had typed that. Before or after she let another man touch her? How long? I asked. It started there. Started? Her eyes filled. Emotionally, maybe before. I don't know. I don't know how to say this without sounding even worse. I almost shouted, but Caleb was asleep upstairs, and even shattered men know when to lower their voices. Try. She pressed both palms to the edge of the table, as if she needed help staying upright. We had drinks after the first day. Everyone did. Then people left in groups. He stayed. I stayed. We talked. About what? Work. My dad. Stress. Us. The word hit me like a slap. Us? She nodded, crying now. He asked if I was happy. I barked another dead laugh. And that led to you sleeping with him? She covered her mouth. I stepped closer. Did it? Her shoulders folded inward. The second night, he knocked on my hotel door. I felt my entire face go hot. And you opened it. Yes. Why? Because some part of me already wanted to. There is no clean way to hear that sentence from the person who once promised to grow old beside you. It does not just break trust. It rewrites memory. Every anniversary, every apology, every morning kiss gets dragged under a harsh new light. You start wondering if love ever protected you, or if it simply blinded you long enough to make the wound deeper. I gripped the counter so hard the edge cut into my palm. How many times? She hesitated again. That hesitation almost killed me. How many times, Lauren? 3. I looked away because if I had kept looking at her, I might have thrown something, screamed, pounded the walls, done anything to force the world to match the violence inside me. Instead, I stared out the dark window above the sink and saw our reflection trembling over the black glass, like ghosts trapped in somebody else's house. 3 times. 3 times while I brushed our son's teeth over FaceTime because she said she loved watching his bedtime routine. 3 times while I slept on my side of our bed with my hand reaching into the cold space she usually filled. 3 times while I defended her to my sister, who said work was turning Lauren into a stranger and maybe we needed counseling before resentment grew roots. I turned back. Did you love him? Her answer came too fast. No. That should have comforted me. It did not. If she had blown up our family for love, at least there would have been some tragic shape to it. But no. She had done it for attention, escape, adrenaline, loneliness, ego, hunger, weakness, curiosity. Pick any ordinary human failure. Somehow that was worse. Love can make people stupid. Emptiness makes them cruel. Then why are you asking for a divorce? I said. If you're sorry if it was a mistake, why are you standing there acting like this is finished? She wiped her face, but new tears fell instantly, because I can't come back from what I said to him. A chill moved through me. What did you say? She looked at me with the kind of shame that changes a face. That I married the wrong man. I thought pain had already found its deepest place. I was wrong. It is a strange thing. Hearing the death of your marriage in a sentence your wife handed another man in a hotel room. I had imagined betrayal before, in the abstract way married people sometimes do when a movie gets too close to a fear they never say out loud. In those private nightmares, the worst part was always the sex. But the truth was worse than naked bodies. The truth was language. The truth was that while I was home packing our son's lunch and folding her blue sweater because she forgot to, my wife was looking into another man's face and reducing our whole life to a mistake. I heard myself speak in a voice so flat it frightened me. Did you mean it? Lauren did not answer. That was answer enough. I nodded slowly. Tell me everything. She stared at me like she wanted permission to lie. I gave her none. Everything, I repeated. So she did. I listened, and every word carved deeper. The way he looked at me, she whispered. It made me feel chosen. I almost told her I had chosen her every day for 11 years, even on days she was difficult, grieving, distant, tired, impossible to reach. But I said nothing. There are confessions so ugly they do not deserve interruption. She said on the second night he came to her door after texting, "Can I see you for a minute?" She knew what it meant before she unlatched the deadbolt. He walked in. They stood too close. He touched her face. She kissed him first. I shut my eyes. I still hear her next words in the exact rhythm she spoke them. I could have stopped. I didn't want to. Then came details I will not repeat here, not because they were too graphic, but because the human mind is already merciless enough. I did not need the geography of their betrayal. I only needed the truth that she had crossed every line with open eyes. She told me afterward she cried in the shower and almost called me. She even picked up her phone. Then, she saw the picture of me and Caleb on her lock screen and set it face down instead. On the third night, she met him again. On the fourth, again. By the fifth day, the conference was ending, and reality had begun crawling back toward her. At the airport, he told her he could not promise a future, not with the company, not with the power imbalance, not with the mess it would create. He said what happened between them was real, but real did not always mean wise. That, more than anything, seemed to crack whatever fantasy had possessed her. She looked at me across our kitchen and said, "I think I built an entire different life in my head in less than a week." I thought it meant something huge. Then he talked like a lawyer, like a man closing a deal, and I realized I had detonated my family for someone who was always going to protect himself first. I laughed again, but this time the sound turned into a cough, because grief had reached my throat. "So now you want a divorce because he doesn't?" "No." "Then why?" She took a long breath that shook all the way through her body. "Because when I came home, I looked at this house, at your shoes by the door, at Caleb's backpack on the chair, at the sauce on the stove, and I realized, you are a good man, Evan, a better man than the one I was this week. And I realized if I stay because I'm ashamed, or because I'm scared, or because he didn't choose me, then I will poison everything left. You will always be watching me. I will always be lying when I say I deserve your forgiveness. Caleb will grow up in a house full of hidden rot. Maybe some marriages survive this. Ours shouldn't. Not after what I thought. Not after what I said. I wanted to hate that speech, but part of me heard the first honest thing she had said all night. Still, honesty after betrayal is like water after a fire has already taken the house. Necessary. Useless. Now my marriage was ending at that same table because my wife had wanted to feel chosen by somebody new. "Does Caleb know?" I asked. She shook her head violently. "No. God, no. Does anyone?" "My friend Tessa. No one else." I rubbed both hands over my face. I could smell garlic and cold rain and airplane perfume on her coat, and I hated that my body still recognized her scent as home. "Are you leaving tonight?" She blinked, then looked up the stairs. "If you want me to." That was the first time all evening she seemed genuinely afraid of the answer. I thought about Caleb upstairs, sprawled sideways across his bed like he always slept, trusting the floor beneath him, the roof above him, the love downstairs. I thought about what morning would look like when he came padding into the kitchen, asking if Mom brought him the airplane pretzels she promised. I thought about explaining separation to a child who still believed every broken thing in the house could be repaired with glue, tape, or patience. "Yes," I said. She nodded as if she had expected that. "I can go to Tessa's." Pack quietly. A sob broke out of her, sudden and ugly. "Evan, don't." She covered her mouth with both hands, trying to trap the sound. I stood and walked to the sink because I needed distance before pity did something stupid to me. Compassion can be a dangerous reflex in loyal people. We mistake it for strength and use it to keep bleeding for someone who has already stepped away. Behind me, I heard her wheels against the floor, then the creak of the stairs. I stood there in the kitchen alone, listening to my wife pack for the first night of the rest of my ruined life. A few minutes later, Caleb appeared at the top of the stairs in dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up, eyes heavy with sleep. "Mom?" Lauren froze halfway down the hall. I could not see her, but I knew she had stopped moving because the house held its breath. I turned fast and forced my face into something a child could survive. "Hey, buddy. Bad dream?" He rubbed one eye. I heard voices. Lauren came into view then, carrying an overnight bag like it weighed as much as her guilt. The second Caleb saw her, he smiled. Purely, automatically. That smile nearly finished me. "Mom, you're back." He ran down the stairs and threw his arms around her legs. She dropped the bag and folded over him, crying into his hair so hard her shoulders shook. Caleb pulled back, confused. "Why are you sad?" She looked at me over his head. There are glances that contain entire funerals. That was one of them. I crossed the room and crouched beside them. "Mom had a rough trip, but she's really tired." He accepted that, because children accept whatever version of reality love gives them. "Did you bring the pretzels?" She laughed through tears and reached into her purse. I did. He took the little bag like treasure. "Can we have pancakes tomorrow?" I answered, before she could. "Tomorrow's going to be a little different, okay?" His face changed. Not into fear exactly, but into the earliest shadow of it. "Different how?" Lauren broke then. She sat on the floor, pulled him into her lap and said, "Daddy and I are having grown-up problems, sweetheart. None of it is because of you. Do you hear me? None of it." Caleb looked between us. "Are you mad?" I felt my throat close. "Yes," I said, "because children deserve at least one honest thing in a collapsing room. But not at you." He stared at the pretzel bag in his hand. "Are you gonna get divorced like Mason's parents?" No child should know that word before multiplication tables, but the world rarely asks our permission before wounding them. Lauren started crying again. I took over. "We're still figuring things out." He nodded, though he clearly did not understand. Then, in a voice so small I still hear it some nights, he asked, "Are I and my dinosaur coming too?" That sentence broke the last intact thing inside me. I pulled him against my chest and held him while he squirmed, embarrassed by my sudden desperation. "You're not going anywhere, buddy. You hear me? Mom and Dad love you more than anything on this earth." It was true, which made what Lauren had done feel even more unforgivable. She left 20 minutes later. Caleb had fallen back asleep in my bed after demanding both of us lie beside him for a while. Lauren kissed his forehead for a long time. Then she stood in the doorway, looked at me, and whispered, "I am so sorry." I did not answer. The front door closed, the house shivered, and just like that, my marriage became a sound disappearing into wet night. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, silence, and tiny brutal adjustments. Lauren moved into a furnished apartment across town. We told family the truth in different degrees. My parents cried. Her sister cursed her out so viciously on speakerphone that Lauren hung up and texted me later, saying I did not need to defend her. I wasn't planning to. Lauren asked if we could try counseling before filing, not because she thought we would reconcile, she said, but because maybe a therapist could help us uncurl the barbed wire around the damage and co-parent without drowning Caleb in it. I agreed for Caleb, not for us. One evening after mediation, she asked if we could sit in the parking lot for a minute. The sun was going down behind the strip mall, painting everything in that cheap orange light that makes even ugly places look forgiving. She kept both hands on the steering wheel, although the engine was off. "I need you to know something," she said. I stared ahead. "What?" "I'm not with him." I almost laughed. "Congratulations," she flinched, but kept going. I haven't spoken to him outside what was required for the investigation. There is no hidden relationship. There was no grand love story. It was selfish and stupid and disgusting, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I turned to her then. Do you think that helps me? No, she said, voice breaking. I think it helps me tell the truth at least once without protecting myself. I studied her face. The defensiveness that had once lived there was gone. She looked stripped down to nerve. Then here's my truth, I said. I loved you enough to forgive ordinary human flaws. Stress, distance, depression, anger. I would have fought for us through all of it. But what you did wasn't one mistake. It was a series of choices. And the part I can't survive isn't even the affair. It's that you came home certain I was the wrong man before I ever got a chance to know the marriage was in trouble. You didn't ask me to reach for you. You handed that chance to someone else. Tears slid down her face, but I did not stop. You were right about one thing in that kitchen, I said. Our marriage shouldn't survive that. She nodded with the slow grief of someone accepting a sentence already passed. I know. The divorce was finalized 8 months after Phoenix. No screaming courtroom scene. No dramatic collapse. Just signatures, dates, account numbers, a parenting schedule, and a clerk who had probably watched love die in 100 different fonts. When it was over, Lauren sat on the courthouse steps and cried into both hands. I stood there with the envelope tucked under my arm, feeling not victorious, not healed, just stunned by how legally tidy devastation can look. Before I walked to my car, she said my name. I stopped. I did love you, she whispered. The wind lifted a strand of hair across her face. For a second, she looked like the girl from the football game again, young and radiant and still untouched by the worst thing she would one day do. I know, I said. That's what makes it so tragic. I gave her the divorce because some endings are not punishments. They are acknowledgments. A marriage can die before the paperwork catches up. Love can remain after trust is buried, and still not be enough to resurrect anything. Sometimes letting go is the last honest act left. What I do not tell him is that some nights, long after he is asleep, I still stand in my kitchen and remember the candle, the sauce, the rain, the ring on the counter, and the exact sound my life made when it split in two. And I think the cruelest part of betrayal is not that someone else was chosen for a moment. It is that the person you trusted most walked into your home carrying a version of your future you never consented to, set it down in front of you, and asked you to survive it. I did survive it, but survival is not the same thing as staying the same. If you have never been betrayed, you may think the wound closes when the liar leaves, when the papers are signed, when enough seasons pass and the neighbors stop whispering. That is not how it works. The wound becomes part of your weather. Some days are clear. Some days the old storm returns without warning, because a suitcase rolls across a floor, or someone says they are tired from a work trip, or vanilla from a cracked glass candle drifts through a store aisle, and suddenly you are back in the kitchen, listening to your own heart break before you even understand the words. Still, life keeps asking to be lived. So, I live it. I make pancakes on Saturdays. I cheer at soccer games. I call my sister back. I laugh sometimes, real laughter, and do not feel guilty when it comes. I have learned that hope does not always arrive like sunlight. Sometimes it arrives like discipline. Sometimes it is just getting up, washing the dishes, answering the email, signing the school form, refusing to let one person's worst choice become the author of your entire story. Lauren and I are civil now, gentle, even for Caleb's sake. There are moments when I catch grief in her eyes and know she is carrying her own private ruins. I do not hate her every day anymore. That may be the closest thing to peace I ever get. But if you ask me what I learned, I will tell you this. Marriage is not destroyed only in hotel rooms or whispered lies. It is destroyed first in the quiet places, where honesty should have been spoken and wasn't, where loneliness is fed in secret, where being desired by a stranger starts to feel more thrilling than being known by the person who has loved you through the most ordinary and therefore most sacred parts of life. And if you ask me why I gave her the divorce after hearing everything, the answer is painfully simple. Because the woman who came home from Phoenix was not just asking to leave, she was confessing that she had already gone. And no matter how deeply I loved her, I could not keep building a home for someone who had set fire to it and then stood in the smoke asking me to call the ashes love.